Welcome back to the Wannabe Artist podcast. I am your host. My name is Justin, and unfortunately, I am not joined by Joshua again. Instead, we have a returning guest. Introduce yourself.
What's up? I'm Kavin. I was here a few weeks ago. Um, Justin's bestie.
You guys remember him.
Yeah.
Anyone who's listening, you remember him. You say a few weeks ago, but that was 2 months ago.
Oh, 2 months ago. Feels like a few weeks. Yeah. I'm actually like out of state. Me and Justin do not live in the same state, and I was here actually.
Yeah, I was. Wait, you jumped in.
Oh, I'm so
Very.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
I wanted to ask you. Okay, I guess you already started talking about it, but how come you are back so soon?
Yeah. So, the reason is because of this Childish Gambino concert. But funny story is that he low-key canceled it, because he is like suffering through an injury or something. So we postponed the whole tour. No clue when I'm gonna get to see him. And I had a Spirit airline ticket that I could not refund. And school was kind of destroying me. It was beating my ass a little bit. So I was like, why don't I just escape for like literally 2 days? And now we're here. So yeah.
Yes, sir. And I'm so glad you're back already.
Yeah. It feels like nothing changed though. It
Yeah.
feels like I never left.
We said goodbye in July, like we weren't going to see each other until like December.
Mhm.
And here we are 2 months later. And we're already kicking it again, getting up to our shenanigans. We have
Yeah.
a fun night ahead of us,
Very
right?
fun night ahead of us.
You want to do you want to just briefly mention what we're doing?
Yeah, we're going to see Nick Choi and DJ Mandy in LA do back-to-back sets, which I'm very grateful that I got to see. Shout out to both of them, pushing the boundaries for what live DJ sets can be.
Hell yeah. I'm very unfamiliar with
Yeah, I told
either
Justin
these
not to listen
names.
to them or look up anything. So he's gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I'm in for a treat. And yeah, we have few little parties and events going on. It's always really interesting when you're kind of blending your two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have like Coven, obviously, and like our friend Maddie, who I've known for a long time, and I consider like my hometown friends, meeting my college friends, it's always very surreal and strange. And I'm sure you feel the same way
Yeah.
anytime I see your friends.
Yeah. But it's so fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Because to me, I get to look back at the pictures and be like, this is so fun. Like this, like they probably don't think it's that crazy, but to me, this is the funniest thing in the world. These two people
Yeah.
in the same picture.
It's almost like unreal.
Yeah, when you met my Chicago friends, I think I still look at those pictures. And I'm like, I just giggle.
Ah, that's such a
Makes me
good
happy.
memory.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, before we get into some meatier discussions,
Meteor.
yeah, big and meaty
We're
discussions.
gonna be doing some frail, skinnier discussions.
Yeah, frail, slim Jim discussions. Is there anything you've been listening to or watching that you want to shout out, talk about?
So watching, not really. I moved into a new apartment that doesn't have a TV, and I'm on like my grind semester. So I kind of told myself I need like low stimulation. So watching anything, but I've been listening to a lot of music, a lot of great new music. I think I talked about this. I don't know if I did, but I'm going to a McGee concert. McGee, he's a solo guitarist and vocalist, and he had an album this year, Two Star and the Dream Police, that I think is my album of the year.
Oh, hell yeah.
I strongly recommend everyone go watch it. Go listen to it, sorry.
I think we did mention this the last episode you were here.
Oh, well, okay. If you haven't, then listen to it now.
Yes.
He's working with Justin Bieber soon, which is really funny.
Crazy collab.
Insane collab. But as well, some other music I've been revisiting is a lot of Solange.
Mm-hmm.
I get really into her like once every 2 years-ish. Her last album, When I Get Home, she had a visual album for her, and I just like, I've put that on at least like 7 times in the past like 3 weeks just because I just like can sit and do homework to it. It's the best. She is truly, I don't want to say underrated, but underappreciated, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You gotta shout out the underappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
How else are people gonna find out about them if
true.
we don't speak their names? I guess I can throw some things out there that I've been watching, listening to. I guess just as of this month, the French animated Mars Express is a big one. It's a really, really awesome cyberpunk detective noir kind of blend. And I don't know, I didn't really hear many people talking about it, but I think if you're into any of those specific genres, if you're into like the cyberpunk Blade Runner aesthetic, it'll be right down your alley. It's basically made for me. A documentary called Samsara, directed by Ron Frick. This is the cinematographer of Koyoni Scotzi, another famous documentary by Godfrey Reggio. Yeah, that one's really cool. Says a lot about our existence, our world. And in terms of just movies.
Oh, is the Godfrey guy the Koyan Niskadi?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's
Oh, I've been meaning to watch these. Yeah.
yeah, definitely hop onto those. And another movie, which we'll be talking about later. I don't want to say too much right now, but has definitely been a highlight.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I feel bad because all the things that I have been into recently are Meteor.
Meteor?
As
Like in
in,
comparison?
like the things that we're gonna be talking about for the meat of this episode
I
is what I
see.
wanted to bring up
Yeah.
right now. That's like all that's been in my rotation. But yeah.
And I also apologize. I am kind of recovering from the frat flu
Yeah, both of us
epidemic.
are a little bit.
So my voice right now is kind of cooked.
And we're about to probably contract each other's frat flus.
Yep.
And
we're
bring them to
gonna
each other's campuses.
get more diseases as we go to the DJ event tonight.
Yeah.
This is why pandemics happen, because we're not responsible and let ourselves rest.
Because we're so stupid.
You know what? It's inevitable though. Anyway, music. I've really been into Caro Caro Bonito. I think they are great. As of today, honestly, Kavin was putting me on to 100 Gex.
Yeah.
Some Black MIDI.
Ooh.
I fuck with them very hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just been going down like COVID memory lane and or not really Black MIDI. Black MIDI was more like start of college, but like yeah, senior just high school music.
Yeah.
Black MIDI was big for me in high school. 100 Gex also. I think that to stay topical with that new Brat Deluxe like basically remix album coming out. I was thinking about the fact that remix albums are kind of like few and far between. It's very rare that someone will make a great album and then they'll do this phenomenon of a remix album where they just bring like some incredible collaborations together. And I do think that 1000 Gex and the Tree of Clues, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
That remix album is to this day, I think the best remix album that exists. And it's only because I can't think of many other like proper remix albums.
No, I'd agree. From just
Ringtone, that
what I've
song.
heard.
100 Gex, Charlie XCX, Rico Nasty, and KKB all in one song is like truly generational.
Godly collab.
G40 and Count Balder on Stupid Horse is also a great song. The fact that they have a Black Dresses 745 Sticky remix, Dorian Electra and Fall Out Boy and AG Cook and Injury Reserve all being on the same album is like,
my goodness,
truly something that can only ever exist once. So
once in a blue moon.
Exactly. So yeah, looking forward to that new Brat album, but we must not forget our roots, which is 1000 Gex and the Tree of Clues.
Dude, I don't think it's slowing down. The hype for Brat, I feel like, is just ongoing.
Yeah, which is cool. As someone who's been a Charlie XCX fan for about half my lifetime now,
that's crazy.
I'm glad that she's made her own thing. I definitely am preferring to listen to her older stuff just right now, just because I'm like forgetting, or it's hard to think of her as anything that isn't Brat right now. But she was so many things in the past.
Yeah,
and those are very, very good as well.
We all start somewhere. And I guess just some shout outs. Japanese Breakfast, Sweet Trip, Panchico have been in my rotation for, I guess, this entire year and past year. But those are ones I always come back to. And that's kind of been my genre as of late. But yeah. We wanted to talk about a very notable album release. And do you want to kind of introduce it?
Yeah. So it's been before this album came out, it was around a little over a year since his last very successful album, Scaring the Hoes, came out. And in between that album and this album, there was a lot of him tweeting music's gonna come out soon. This album's taking a long time. Music's coming out soon. Yada yada yada. And then finally, we got 2 singles and a beautiful summer album. I Lay Down My Life for You by JPEGMAFIA.
Ooh.
Very, 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 very good album. Yeah, too much to talk about. Should we just get started?
Yeah, I guess like what we did for Gambino, I guess we can talk about just our brief history and our
Yeah.
experience with JPEG Mafia. So if you want to
Yeah,
talk about
actually,
that
this
first.
is great because it goes back into like middle school, which is like the
Mhm.
prime years that me and Justin were like getting close.
Yes.
I think a lot of my music taste is thanks to my older sister. Shout out you, Nilla. Shout out her and her music taste, or for letting me be cool without always crediting you. But in 8th grade, she didn't go to a JPEG Mafia concert, but she had a friend who did. And I don't remember exactly how I got into him, but the song, I always forget the numbers. Wait, I'm gonna guess them right now and then I'm gonna check. 1859 North Calvert.
I think, yeah.
1539 North Calvert.
There was
Dang
a
it.
lot riding on the line, and you
Yeah, I
failed.
did fail. 1539 Calvert, North
Yes.
Calvert,
I'm
on
just kidding.
Veteran in 2018. When that album came out and I heard that song, it literally changed my life. I think that's to this day is one of my most played songs on my Spotify, like
Mhm.
like rostered. I just have never gotten tired of that song.
Banger.
And that whole album, Veteran, is incredible. It was just so cool to hear production like this and to hear all these different crazy samples. And it's still funny because I think at JPEG Mafia's core, he's like alt rap, but there's so many different. He has so many like sound inspirations. Like he's very into like soundwave and like what's that word? I'm blanking.
Can't help you out here with music vocab. If
Uh,
Joshua was here, he'd probably be able
Joshua,
to pull
save
it, but
me.
I'm sorry.
Lo-fi, like lo-fi
Okay.
production. Like there's a lot of like lo-fi aesthetics and inspirations in a lot of his older stuff.
Mhm.
So I was just super into it. I think it was kind of hopping off the Brockhampton train. That was like my immediate next hyperfixation.
Yes.
And I think since that album, throughout COVID, he's just always was like just always a top artist for me. All of his lyrics are always so funny and topical, and no one will ever say the things he says. And yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, I'd say my experience, I guess, starts a little later. I think you actually put me onto JPEG Mafia, like early high school. And even at that point in my life where my music taste was not at the level that it is now, like I still could tell there was something very special about him. And he dominated a very specific place within rap, hip hop, and just alt kind of music. And yeah, I've always been a fan. And I'd say quarantine was definitely like a big point of where I really got into him, listening to like Offline and All My Heroes Are Cornballs, Veteran, of course, classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to this day, my favorite album is All My Heroes Are Cornballs. But I also want to say that the song Bald. No.
Yeah.
No, not Bald.
Hazard Duty Pay?
Huh?
Hazard Duty Pay?
No, which is the song with Kenny Beats?
Kenny Beats. Is it on Cornballs?
No, it's a single.
Oh my god, we look like fake fans.
I know. What's wrong with us? Puff Daddy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, how could we forget? Puff Daddy is just like a classic song that I associate with you, me, and Maddie. Like I feel like us three have been into that song forever. And then in my senior year of high school, I went to a concert, like went to a JPEG Mafia concert for the first time, and he played. It was for the Offline album or Offline, yeah,
yes.
LP, and then Offline. And he played Hazard Duty Pay before it was out, like before he got clearance for it. And it was just like it was one of the first times any of us in that crowd had heard it, and just like a life-changing song. And he did accidentally elbow me in the face. He stage dived a little bit.
The most honorable elbow ever.
But I will take it. Like I still remember how it felt to just see a flying elbow.
That's one of my favorite tracks. I think that's one of his best of all time.
Yeah.
And everyone who knows me and who's listened to the recent episodes knows I was also at a JPEG Mafia concert recently. And
For
yeah, that
this
was
album.
for this album. And yeah, I haven't been to too many performances or live concerts, but easily tops any of them. He's one of the best performers I've seen,
Mhm.
and just his energy and everything was just perfect in that show.
Yeah.
Acapella, he sang acapella, Call Me Maybe.
Call Me Maybe, Carly Rae
Yes.
Jepsen.
Mhm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like the thing I always really liked about him was just like audacity.
Mhm.
I think that there's a lot that you can respect about someone's audacity. His song titles were always so funny and just
Yeah.
crazy. Like they sound like clickbait.
Mhm.
Like Jesus forgive me, I am a thought. My thoughts on NeoGaf dying.
Yeah.
That's an old song, and it's all the lyrics is just I don't fucking care. It's just so stupid. I cannot wait. I cannot fucking wait until Morrissey dies. Like it's just all these, and then he's also. I mean, he's had some controversies in the past where he literally for no reason, like it doesn't add, in my opinion, doesn't add to the song at all.
Uh-huh.
Put the audio of like a cop getting shot, like from like a viral video onto one of his songs, and it is very topical for the things that he talks about in his like values and I guess the look and like a lot of people I think
His
were
aura.
upset or thought that it was too far. But I feel like this is the artist that you should expect these things from.
Yeah. At this
Yeah.
point, like, no one should be upset. Like, you go, Peggy. Anyone who's trying to, like, cancel him, like, fuck you. Like, literally. Like, his boldness is something we need in this space, specifically
Yeah.
with music, hip hop music.
Yeah. I mean, just specifically with him, it just feels like there is no like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
At least like with his art. Like a lot of the things that he's doing things to be purposefully controversial in his
Mhm.
art. So yeah.
And all of you who are getting mad, you're falling right into his trap card.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, how about we get into the album that we are talking about?
Yeah. So should we just get started with the tracks we like?
Yeah, we'll list off. We're not gonna go track for track,
Yeah,
yacht for yacht.
we are going band for band at least.
Yeah. So yeah,
Um
let's list off some of our
Track
favorite
value.
tracks.
So I think we should start with the first track actually though.
Okay.
I scream this in the mirror before I interact with anyone.
Mhm.
Just such a it's such a funny line and the whole I think it's probably one of the best like intros to an album I've ever
Mhm.
heard. It's just like this quiet drumming that starts,
Yeah.
which is I think a good kind of way to start an album for Peggy who is usually stuck to like very very digital sounds
Mhm.
and it's like suddenly you just hear like this very 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 like poppy like percussion in this way is I wouldn't say new for him, but it's
Mhm.
definitely purposefully different.
Yeah.
And that like sets the tone for the whole album. There's a lot of like orchestral bits and like crazy guitar solos and stuff. And this
Mhm.
is just a perfect way just to let this guitar, or just to start with the drums and then just let this guitar just soar while he's singing.
Mhm.
Um, but this is like classic Peggy lines being funny.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
put this on my list, but this is definitely a standout track. I like when he gets very, like, moody, like, atmospherical, and the build up with this one is really great with the instrumentals.
yeah. And it just
And
in general, it's funny that like the whole song is just like sports references. He talks about
yeah.
Debo and Shaq missing free throws, and um, the first line is, "If I was an NBA player, I'd be Dylan Brooks, but worse." It's just he's just like I feel like the thing about Peggy is that he has a bunch of different subset of fans. I would
Mhm.
say I feel like there's a lot of people who are like terminally online. They would
Yeah,
describe themselves and they're big with
chronically.
JPEG Mafia, but I think like it's just like nerds. Like a lot of honestly a lot of his music is just for nerds.
Mm.
So this is him getting the sports nerd. Um,
That is one of the most interesting aspects of just him as an artist, like, how
mm,
many different areas of fandom he, like,
there's so many
reaches.
like esoteric and niche references that he's making all
Yeah,
the time. But yeah, I great song.
yeah,
And
and I
then
wanna say this is one of the best songs that he performed at his
mm,
recent concert. Like, I was very much into this live.
and then yeah, so then another song that I want to say or that has the same vibe. This is a kind of the standout songs in the first half of the album. Another one I really like is "I'll Be Right There." Very glittery song. Um, it sounded like "All My Heroes Are Cornballs." It for the first two tracks, which are very like hardcore and rugged and like hype, quote
Mhm.
unquote. "I'll Be Right There," just going right after there and right after and just being sweet and funnier. Great placement. But yeah. And then the other song I wanted to talk about is "Don't Rely on Other Men," which was the other single, or the first single that came out.
Mm.
It has a feature, uncredited feature, but his good friend Freaky, who he has a song called "I Might Vote for Donald Trump" with. This is like one of his old time friends, and
Politics.
yeah, it's like, but the song is not political at all.
Yeah.
It's just them being stupid, just like on brand.
The buzzwordy like nature.
Yeah. And it's just fun to hear Freaky back in, like, because he hasn't it's been a while since he's collabed with him. So I feel like Peggy was put him on this album just to be like, I'm going back to my roots a little bit, which is, I feel like, a good pivot after a lot of like career tops. This is the first album that he made after producing for Kanye for 2 albums, which he
Okay.
produced YS 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
like the past 2 albums. So I like, with his newfound success, kind of just going back to like what his roots were, was very, very good. And reminded me a lot of Brat, because I think Brat was like, a lot of marketing was really pushing that this is going to be her It Girl stand-up album. And it's very new and it's like a very different thing for her, but
Yeah.
she does here and there put a lot of things that are there for like hardcore OG fans, which I like.
It's a very interesting comparison.
Yeah. But yeah. And then, standout features for this album. I do want to talk about all the songs that have features on them.
Yes.
New Black History with Vince Staples. Oof. Just an incredible, incredible song. It starts with an interpolation, or no, it's a sampling Covered in Money, which is like a 2013, 2012 Future song.
Crazy
and then
pull.
it just like is, crazy pull out of nowhere. And it's just his production over it. And there's like 3 beat switches in it. And he like, it's just so good. Vince Staples doing as good as always. And yeah. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best on the albums. I think this combo is always a great addition to any project that he does. Yeah.
I think that it's weird because Vince and JPEGMAFIA kind of have very similar styles.
Yeah.
But they're like, you would expect a Denzel Curry feature on an album like this. You'd honestly expect a Danny Brown, like, for them to make collab albums in the future tentatively. But this was a surprise to me, and I was super stoked about it. The next, and I think my favorite feature on the whole album, is JPEG Ultra, which to me sounds like a Denzel Curry song. The production is super different. I would say the most different from the entire album. The entire album is super orchestral and like rocky. It's trying to be very grunge and like metally. And this one is just like it kind of feels like a boxing ring, doesn't it?
Yeah, this one is great, obviously. Anytime they collab, it always feels like a moment, like a statement, and this
It's
is no
like a
different.
true matching each other's freak.
Yeah. They understand their freaks in one another.
And I think that's why it sounds so good. Like, I think that's like Peggy literally made this for Denzel Curry. And I like the whole intro before Denzel does his verse where he does like a transatlantic accent, like he's literally like stepping into the ring. It's like, it's so good. And then there's one part I just want to mention of this song. There's kind of like a beat switch towards the second, like the last third, where Peggy literally shushes, like he goes shh.
Yeah.
And then the beat switch happens and it just becomes like this whole like quieter thing. But yeah. And then one thing I didn't tell you that I was going to tell you before, the last feature on the album, Don't Put Anything on the Bible. It has a feature from Buzzy Lee, who, it's just like, I mean, JPEGMAFIA loves like female pop stars, or just like, he loves female pop. That's why he loves Carly Rae Jepsen. But Buzzy Lee is actually the daughter of Steven Spielberg.
No way.
And she like doesn't have like she's like kind of just now starting her career, but yeah, they're like friends. And it's just like a funny, I did not expect to see that name on this album.
Dude, you're actually like blowing my mind. There's no, like, that is a crazy pull.
Yeah, insane pull.
I was very into the vibe of this one. Like, she definitely has a voice, and I think it blends well into the rest of this album. This one feels a lot more like kind of methodical and setting a mood rather than jumping in action, you know?
He has had previous songs where he works with like a really good vocalist. He has a song with Ravina. The song The Who, with EOS. I don't know how to say that, but he does do a lot of collaborations with female vocalists, and I feel like they all kind of it feels like he does kind of the same thing with them, but this one felt very different. Kind of like scarier, which was very cool. So yeah. Oh yeah, and also she's on All My Heroes Are Cornballs too. That's like where I like found out about this. So it was just cool to see her back.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
She's been lurking.
Yeah. And then I do want to talk about like the second half of the album now. So I would say that the first half is very, very like rugged, and he does a lot of like the metal stuff. Like it's very guitar heavy, very like just screamo kind of.
Yeah.
But then there's also like the Don't Rely on Other Men, which is like more that one has like an orchestral verse or an orchestral feature on the second half that is like incredible, and it makes it that's the point of the album where you're like, wow, this is not like his other albums. It's weird to call a JPEGMAFIA album polished. Like usually they all sound kind of like rough on the edges, but this is where he's like really working with a lot of different elements. But then on the second half, it does get really like kind of softer and more forward, and you kind of realize that a lot of the stuff that he's been rapping about, when he's not joking around, and like when he's not just like kind of flexing, a lot of the lyrical content is just him calling the industry his sons, and how like there's a bunch of losers rappers who are doing terrible things and they're not on his level. But songs like Loop It and Leave It and Either On or Off the Drugs are kind of more forward, and just he talks more about like his own struggles or like mental health stuff. But then the last song, I Recovered From This, is kind of weird. It made me realize, I was like, wait, am I listening to
the same man?
Am I listening to the same person? And it's weird. It starts with a Janet Jackson feature, or not feature,
like an audio bite.
Yeah, an audio bite, or sample.
Yeah.
And it's just like, funny how time flies when we're having fun. And it's just like suddenly really sad. And the first line is just, it's not that I don't love my bitch, but I don't love my side hoes neither. And it's still very tongue in cheek, but it's like a weird tongue in cheek. It's like when your really funny friend starts like cracking jokes that are just like a little too like are you okay, dog? Yeah. And it's making me realize that this whole thing was like low key a breakup album.
Yeah. I'm always just with each project, I'm very impressed by how he's able to flip back and forth between the two worlds that he kind of inherits, like being super energetic and like not giving a fuck about how people perceive him, and then versus his very internal personality and very philosophical like mindset.
It's always either like, everyone is my enemy, or it's like, I am my enemy, which is like a really funny,
I'm my greatest enemy.
Up. And it's like, it's still like, even when, so I mean, this last song, I Recovered From This, is very like just very forward and like weird to hear from him. But yeah.
I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned earlier. I agree with the sentiment that this does feel like his most like polished project. And I've always appreciated his style of feeling like, I don't want to say like unorganized, but like there's like a hint of like,
it's like purposefully
amateur almost.
It, like he's like his album with Danny Brown, he made it on this really old like soundboard. He made the whole album on a soundboard from the 80s that a lot of like classic hip hop albums were made on, but the limitations of it are like terrible. And he says that you can hear like that amateurness that you're talking about in that album. And like, yeah, so it's kind of like a very intentional, I was gonna say organized chaos, but it goes more than that, right? Like it's like this very purposeful roughness. But yeah, I think that's all kind of stripped away in this album.
I feel like there's a lot of artists out there who go for the same approach of trying to have that rough around the edges kind of aesthetic, and it like doesn't feel as natural as when Peggy does it.
Yeah, but I mean, he still keeps it in here and there, like that song "It's Dark and Hell Is Hot," where it's like a sped up. It feels like a TikTok edit, where it's like a sped up like funk song.
Yeah, The TikTokification of
Yeah, but then
JPEG.
he just starts rapping over it.
Mhm.
So he still like likes to keep it here and there, but this album is truly like very polished. But yeah, those are the most of the songs that we wanted to talk about, but there is one that we were saving to the end.
Yes, sir.
That was the key single of this album,
Mhm.
and I think my song of the year. I know it's only September, but I don't see it's changing.
I
Sin
would agree.
Miedo.
Yes. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's
Say it
okay.
one more time.
Sin Miedo.
Sin
Which
miedo.
you saw live, and I just want to ask you how that was.
Phenomenal. Like, so we started off on like the left side of the venue, and by the end of the song we were somewhere like in the middle because the movement and energy of the song gets the entire room going, and just his energy is unmatched.
Mhm.
And it was like peaking at that moment.
Yeah,
And I don't think I'll ever experience a performance like that again.
so
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, because I mean, it's really not like any of it, other of his songs. I mean, you come to a JPEG Mafia album for the production, but just like this kind of production is so next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the just like the bumpy synths,
Yes.
just the bam bam bam. It's just crazy.
Yeah, like how
And then
harsh, brutal it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it like it's like it just it literally like I can't sit still listening to that song. And as well the guitar, he does like this very theatrical guitar motif in so many of his songs, but the way that it comes into this song is just like incredible. And then like the outro for the song is just like fast, kind of like poppier,
Hmm.
and then this it just ends. It's just like an incredible song.
It's
It
just the
f- it
perfect.
it's under 3 minutes, but it feels like it feels like there's so much song in this song.
It's just the perfect blend of his crazy instrumentals, synths, and his very, I guess, what you'd expect from his vocals, but very fine tuned to this energy, this vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like the club classics of I Lay Down My Life for You.
Mm, yeah. But yeah, so that's everything we liked.
Mhm.
And now I think we're gonna. It's not a perfect album. I said that I have a favorite JPEG Mafia album, and it's not this one. So
Mhm.
obviously, there's other parts of his discography that I like more. But if we want to start getting into like things we don't like specifically, I found the track run from Vulgar Display of Power to Ex Military to Jihad Joe to be kind of repetitive. It was
Yeah.
just more like the same, like the core of the like rock sound that he's trying to go for is done in a lot of these songs, and it's done so much better in other songs. Like Vulgar Display of Power doesn't do anything that I Scream This in the Mirror doesn't already do. And those songs just get a little Ex Military is like 5 minutes long. I don't. It doesn't need to be that long.
Mhm.
But yeah, was there anything else that you
No,
weren't a fan of?
honestly, the top 2 tracks that we just listed, I felt the same way. Like, it kinda just felt like JPEG just fulfilling what we expect from him,
Mhm.
and less of, like, branching out and going for new things.
Yeah, and I mean, so I don't want to speak too quick because there were songs on Veteran that I definitely thought were like more floppers
Mhm.
for sure. But then like as time went on, I would like get tired of the songs I really liked and then listen to those songs. I'll be like, wait, why didn't I already like these songs before?
Yeah.
They could be growers, but yeah, I
No,
don't see myself really revisiting those ones as much.
now that you say that, I can sneak this in. This album itself to me was a grower, not a shower.
For
Like, I
sure.
already initially really enjoyed it, but I feel like just over time, it's like in my memory,
Yeah.
keeps getting better
Yeah,
the
I
more I
think it's
listen to it.
like he's really good at like leaving an impression,
Mhm,
but I think that a lot of times the songs are a lot to process on a first
mhm.
listen.
I told you I
It
would
takes me a while.
sneak in that.
A
Yeah.
grower, not shower. I was waiting for it. Good job.
And I grew it.
Yeah, you did,
But
buddy.
yeah, like, honestly, even these tracks that we don't like as much as the other ones, like, I don't think any of them are
It's not
bad
his
per se.
worst. Yeah.
Like, they're just perfectly fine JPEG track.
And to this day, I can't really name a JPEG Mafia song I like don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, I'd agree with that sentiment as well.
But yeah, I think that maybe if anything, this album's already pretty like concise at 14 tracks,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel like I needed those three. And if this was going to be a 14 track album, I wish he did more stuff like the second half than he did just try to do stuff that was more like the first half.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's about it
Yeah,
for this.
yeah, we can give ratings now.
Yeah. I forget. It's like is it just a number? An integer? No decimal?
Yeah, a number. I mean, if however you feel
Okay,
you
I'll
want
stick with
to.
that. If I had to choose a singular number that is not a decimal and in between two other integers.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, singular number.
Yeah. I'm going to do an 8, which is like pretty on average. I don't think that there's an album that's less than an 8 for him so far.
Nice. I would give it a 9. I think I started with an 8, but it's moved up to a 9.
Wow.
And I know I was like a little quiet during the segment, but I don't know. When I really enjoy an album like this, I feel like sometimes I just lose
The
the
words to
words,
explain it.
yeah, to
That's
like
how I'm with
vocalize
movies,
it.
honestly. Like I think it's gonna when we talk about the movie we're gonna talk about,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like that. I'm just gonna try my hardest to explain why I like these things.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna be able to.
Yeah, but
But I'm
I
glad
hope
you like it this much because I don't know. I to all my friends who I put on to things, it makes me happy
mhm.
when they like it more than I did.
Dude, you always show me the good music.
Yeah,
And
and
I
Justin
hope
always puts me on to the best things too, like
yeah.
Crank. Crank changed
Dude,
my life.
never forget Kring. I hope I was able to communicate in some way that I do have a lot of love and affection for this album.
Mm-hmm.
I will be bumping Sin Miedo for the rest of my life,
Probably, yeah.
forever. So yeah, that was our discussion on JPEG Mafia's new album, I Lay Down My Life for You. And in the next segment, we are of course going to be talking about a film. And we'll catch you back in a second. And we are back to talk about a film for this segment. Today we're going to be talking about the new film The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargeat. This is her second feature film following the 2017 film Revenge, which was like a thriller kind of twist on the rape revenge subgenre of horror. And this one was getting a lot of buzz at the Venice Film Festival and TIFF, which was going on recently. And this one is about a fading celebrity, Elizabeth Sparkle, who decides to use a black market drug, a cell replicating substance that temporarily recreates a younger, better version of herself. And we both experienced this film yesterday. What did you think, Kevin?
I'm like still in shock. Like I still can't even really like this is gonna be my first time trying to talk about why I like it so much.
Uh-huh.
But it's very rarely that I watch a movie, especially in theaters, and I go, is this one of the best movies I've ever seen? And then I do. And then yeah, it just happened. And like halfway
Mm,
through I was like, wait, I'm feeling that feeling again. So I'm a big fan. I'm very excited to talk about it.
I'm glad to hear. I was also very much into this. I enjoyed Revenge, her first film. I think it showed a lot of promise as a director and a lot of her directorial style and I guess just like elegance transfers very well and naturally over into this film, The Substance, which I think just displays so much genuine growth like as a filmmaker. And as a second feature, this is one of the most impressive that I've seen out there.
Crazy,
Mm.
crazy movie. And she also directed or no, edited and wrote it, right?
Yes, so she's the writer and editor
So
for the film as
all
well.
around like incredible feat of talent.
Yeah. Just before we get started, this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. So if you haven't seen it, please go see it and come back. And like mentioned with the plot description, this is like a very dark satirical comedy
Mm-hmm.
that blends the genre of body horror, and I think that's one of the best combinations out there. Body horror itself is just a genre that lends well into being darkly comedic and having that satirical angle with it. I know I just kind of repeated myself, but
Can you think of
you get
other
what I'm saying.
examples like or
Mhm.
of movies that are like body horror but are also kind of funny? Because the first
Yeah.
one that I think of is Brain Dead, Peter Jackson.
hmm Yeah, I
Um,
actually a very recent example from last year, Sick of Myself
yeah.
by Christopher Borgli. People know he directed Dream Scenario starring Nick Cage. But yeah, I saw a lot of similarities between this and that one.
So yeah, I didn't know anything about this movie except that it had Margaret Qualley in it,
hmm
and and that it was body horror.
Yeah.
And I was fully expecting something kind of by the books and like Sick of Myself. Like that's just what I expected. And this movie went above and beyond in so many ways. But
Yeah,
yeah.
because you were not a fan of Sick of Myself, right?
I think that I think that it would just for me it was the pacing was too slow. Or just it felt to me too one note.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, okay, I get the gist that she just is constantly like hurting herself for attention.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get the idea. And this movie is kind of very similar, where the like thesis of it, like I feel like the message of the film is just like a very poignant like self hatred is bad. Like this is
Yeah.
like you cannot separate the parts that you like from the parts that you don't like of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, Sick of Myself was definitely, I feel like, more centered on that character study and not as much on like the glorification of the body horror and like what a substance like this substance will do to your body.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I really like that one. And I think this is a very nice contrast because as much as it is kind of reminiscent of a film like that, I think this film, The Substance, wears like all of its inspirations like with a badge of honor. And that's my favorite thing, like I mentioned in this episode with Mars Express, is when you can see the clear inspirations for a narrative and see that they're using them as tools to kind of prop up a new narrative. And I think that's the coolest thing because we're in a remix culture and we're going to constantly be seeing the same stories, but if
Or at
you
least,
can,
inspirations of things.
yeah, but if you can find that angle, like what Coralie Fargeat did here, I think that's when you can really strike gold.
Yeah. And it did feel like, okay, I was at least 15 different other properties came into mind when watching this movie, but it felt like its own thing the entire time. Like I think a lot of the way that it's filmed and the editing and just like the colors, like the way that everything kind of looks fake, felt very unique. And reminded me a lot of things, but it wasn't really quite like any of these things.
Yeah, it feels like she really like fine-tuned a lot of her editorial style and the way she just kind of composes shots because it's very up in your face, very glamorous, and I think this film itself just exists in like a hyper realistic setting. It never really feels like it's grounded within a reality, but at the same time there's this level of like glamour and like glitter with this world. But it's like just tangible enough to where you can relate, but also feel like it's kind of like far away from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I talk about a scene specifically that I think is very well shot?
Yeah, go for it.
So, around the start when we follow our protagonist Elizabeth, which is the actress out of her prime, she walks into the men's restroom because the women's restroom is out of service, which is like very funny and like subtle context for the rest of the movie. But like just how many different ways she's rejected or ignored or feels ignored, but she has to go into the men's restroom and it's a static, like the camera doesn't move, it's just like statically shot. She walks into a stall and then her executive producer walks in. It's Dennis Quaid, is that his name?
Yes, Dennis
Quaid runs in on the phone and he comes straight to the camera and starts washing his hands at it, and his head is just bobbling around and moving and he's saying all these crazy things, and it's so in your face and like it like is like painful to watch because he's just being so loud and abrasive.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but he was not washing his hands. Like, it's revealed that it was POV the urinal that he was at.
He was at the urinal.
Yeah, because he leaves the bathroom without washing.
Oh, without washing his hands. Yeah, so he's at the urinal and then he walks away, and then it's like it was so funny because the static, like the motionlessness of the camera, feels so funny after that because it's like the most like just overstimulating like 30 seconds of your life, and then you walk back and you realize she was in the bathroom the whole time. It's just a very, very, very well shot, well put scene that felt like it did exactly, like it made me feel all the emotions that I could tell she wanted me to feel.
Yeah, the imagery is just so memorable, and it has to do a lot with the editing because she hyper focuses on details that you wouldn't normally consider, like if someone's eating something. Like there's a very specific sequence I remember. Dennis Quaid is feasting on shrimp, and she hyperfixates on the shrimp and the bites and all the grease that's splattering everywhere.
His plate, it shows like a bunch of close-ups to like his mouth and how
Yeah.
he's not wiping and he's cracking these shrimp heads open, and then like he leaves and the table is a mess.
Yeah.
It's like so good.
Yeah. Fargeat, she revels in the grimy disgustingness that we inherit and exhibit every day. And
More
I
than
think that's
body
really cool.
horror, really, it was just gross.
Yeah.
Like this was a gross, disgusting movie.
Because I was not under the impression that this would be as hypersexual as it was, but it's very intentional, and it's almost like a Gaspar Noé thing where she wants to glorify sex and she wants to put it in your face and get all up at you.
So much that it gets
Yeah.
uncomfortable at times, right?
Yeah, that's uncomfortable, and that you're feeling the grime of this world, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, we mentioned some actors that are in here. Dennis Quaid is really great. He's really camping it up and just having a lot of fun with this manager role. But I mean, we have to talk about our stars, who I think give like 2 all-time performances. We have Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. How'd you feel about both of them?
So good. So I mean, the roles that both of them play. So Demi Moore plays Elizabeth, who is the original, the Matrix that they call her. That's what they call her. Who takes the substance and then is able to produce a double who shares the same brain, but is just younger and better, and prettier, and like better in all the ways she wants to be better. And she literally like births her, like she like comes out of her back. But I think that the more that the movie progresses, and so the fun like plot device of this movie is that she specifically can only be in each body for 7 days at once. She has to switch. On the 7th day, she has to switch to the next body. So
Or she has to switch back to the original.
Yeah, back to the original, and then original to the back. Like she can't stay in one. So when she is so Margaret Qualley plays her better self, and whose name's Sue. So when Sue becomes Elizabeth again, Elizabeth's acting gets so good, and you can really see like her age, or like she does a great job at like the parts of the scene where she's like decaying. Like it's incredible, and it's not just the like prosthetics or the makeup. It's like literally her acting is so incredible. She becomes this like what the movie is telling us is what she is on the inside, that she's incredibly self-hating, and you can really see it in her like performance.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's something that's a lot of the time not highlighted when you're putting like an actress into older makeup or making them younger and focusing on their movements, because she could have easily phoned it in and not put as much effort into the movement and how she physically acted. But it's so convincing, and I think Demi Moore was like a perfect choice for this role, because I'm not too familiar with her work, but I feel like I heard at some point that this was a somewhat like personal narrative for her.
Cool.
And that experiencing this was almost like her way of saying through the film that this industry has affected her.
Yeah. Well, I know that she was at once a Charlie Angel. She was in Charlie's Angels, and the only other movie that I knew that she was from was G.I. Jane. But I know that she was like like in the 2000s, when she was like in her mid-20s, like that she was doing like the roles that she had wanted to do, or that she was like the it girl at that time. And I feel like there is kind of a phenomenon of actresses who get older and then they play roles of like retired, or like women, like female actresses and models who are like quote unquote like out of their prime.
Yeah.
And I do kind of like the like reclamation of it. You know what I mean? Like I think when they get to do these roles, they get to really put their all into it. And it's like a great reclamation of like, just because they're not like in their 20s and 30s anymore, there's like she really just killed this role, and you can see her talent. And
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always been aware of her, and I could definitely feel that she fell away from the spotlight.
Mm.
And I like that she's coming back to
Yeah.
do this narrative that's very much
And I
focusing on like losing that glamour
Yeah. And
and
I
like
think that when there are more roles like this in the industry, like when these stories are being told,
mhm,
then like admittedly it is a problem where like when these female or like when models or actresses like get older that they get less work.
mhm.
So if there are just more roles for them like this, like that is good and cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, we mentioned Margaret Qualley. I've honestly been really impressed with her just over the years.
Mhm.
She was in Kinds of Kindness recently, Kinds of Kindness, and I think she's just been showing so much range like everywhere.
Mhm.
And I love anytime I see her appearing in a role.
Yeah.
She's come a long way from Misa Misa in the live action Death Note.
Yeah. The only things I mean I've known her from like Once Upon a Time and Kinds of
Yes.
Kindness, and the other thing I knew her from mainly was she plays a role in the Hideo Kojima game Death Stranding.
Oh,
There's a
you're
whole
right. You're
chapter
right.
like assigned for her, and it's not like a crazy role or anything, but I think that like she really does truly have range,
Mhm.
and I think that it is cool that all these very talented artists are like attracted to having her in their roles.
Mhm.
Like I feel like she is always collaborating with the coolest people.
Yeah. And I guess moving more into talking about the plot, we were talking about these two actresses and the different characters they play, but reinforced like many times throughout this narrative is that when you take the substance, you are still one person.
Mhm.
But we see very easily that she falls into creating like a different persona for herself.
Mhm.
And I think that commentary, well, not like the most complex thing ever. It's very simple and like very effective. It's
Mhm.
just the effect that taking drugs or these yeah, I guess like prosthetic changing
Mhm.
substances can have on you
Yeah.
and the type of personality shifts you can go through.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that like you said, it is so simple. It's
Mhm.
literally just like self-hating bad.
Mhm.
But the plot device of the substance itself is also very simple, but there's so much fun that is had with it.
Yeah.
Um, like I think the immediate thing is like obviously she's like when you hear that oh she can only be in each one in 7 days, I'm like okay obviously she's gonna try to push that in
Yeah.
some way. So she tries to like the way that she stays alive when she is Sue is that she like extracts this like nasty serum
Mhm.
from the Elizabeth body and then she has to like take it or she has to like inject it into herself obviously because it's body horror and it has to be
Mhm.
the most disgusting thing. Um, but oh my god. When she tries to stay for another eighth day and then she switches back to Sue, Sue is like suddenly a lot more
Rotten.
rotten
Yeah.
and wrinkly and like scabbed.
Ugh.
So what she takes from one side, um, or what she uses on one side gets taken from the other
Mhm. And
and
it cannot be reversed.
cannot be reversed. So
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it always stays true to its rules. It never goes back on anything. It's always hammering home how this is not changeable.
mhm.
You can't reverse the effects, and I think that adds a lot of tension to
Yeah.
the ploy of this character.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, I want to bring up that scene again when she first births her new self is beautifully horrific because her back starts to rip open and is like a sequence like the sequence from Men from 2022
Mhm.
where many characters are being birthed. I
Yeah.
always think that visual is so shockingly interesting to me. The fact I think there's something very like it's in our nature to be grossed out but also fascinated with birth and seeing a birth taking place.
Mhm.
Seeing a birth of a what like an already living creature, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that isn't just like an infant or a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah, seeing a full adult come out of another adult
Yeah.
was kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that just the body horror stuff is so it's so much more than one thing.
Mhm.
Like it's Cronenberg a lot where it's like body modification, right?
Yes.
Um like of like stretching the body to its like physical limits. There's a
Mhm.
lot of that, but then it's also like a lot of like brain dead,
Yeah.
kind of like prosthetic, like amalgamations of flesh and blood, and it
Become
reminded
yeah.
me of like From Software games or like Bloodborne or like Elden Ring, honestly, where it's just like it felt like a dark fantasy game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, becoming like a monstrosity. I
yeah,
got a lot of
which we'll get into
yeah.
later.
I got like the Thing vibes.
Hmm.
Lots of Requiem for a Dream esque shots with those needle injections
Hmm.
that just keeps happening.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another aspect of body horror that it has, just like needles and like
Hmm.
harm. It's
Yeah,
terrifying.
putting needles into already swelled up purple
Oh my god,
little holes.
it's just terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I've never thought of myself as someone who likes body horror,
Mhm.
but just the amount of audacity this movie had, and it was like, okay, this is for sure gonna be the craziest this movie gets,
Mm.
and then something would happen 20 minutes later that was like crazier, and that happened 7 times in this movie.
Yeah.
I looked at the first time I looked at my phone was an hour in,
Mhm.
and I thought that the movie was gonna be done soon, and then I checked my phone and it was only an hour in, and I knew that it was a 2-hour movie,
Wow.
and I was like, what? I was like, how could this like how is it gonna get worse than this?
Yeah, it's paced really well. Like nothing ever feels like it's like fat or
Yeah.
scenes that could be cut out. It all feels very natural and
I
like
was
it's
down for the ride.
progressing.
Honestly, it could have been longer. Like I could have watched that. I could have watched the like just Elizabeth just go down this downward spiral for like a long time. It was
Hmm.
insane.
Yeah, because as her abuse of the substance continues, this is when her two personas really begin to like diverge,
Mhm.
and she's having this like internal battle, like, oh, the Sue side of myself is ruining my life
Mhm.
and like literally eating away from me.
Mhm.
And then vice versa, Sue is complaining that the Elizabeth side of her is letting herself go and throwing away everything she's built.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is one strange part where when she's Sue, she feels like a bump in her body,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
then she ends up taking out an entire chicken wing out through her belly
That's
button.
right.
I'm still kind of confused about what that scene meant,
Mm,
but the idea is that like the actions and impacts of Elizabeth are affecting Sue,
mhm.
and it's just a reminder that she is one. Like
Yeah.
when she's Elizabeth, she can't do things that won't affect Sue, and vice versa.
Yeah. It's always gonna, one side of your existence is always gonna bleed into the other, no
Hmm.
matter how much you try to avoid that being a
Yeah.
possibility. And I think that's very fascinating.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we've been talking about this entire time, but I think we have to further emphasize how good the practical effects and makeup are. Like some of the best in recent memory,
Hmm.
because this takes it to another level
Truly.
with the ranges of different injuries.
Sounds.
Yeah, sounds.
Just like there's a whole scene where one character is bashing the other one's head into a
Yes.
mirror.
Hmm.
And I think that was that the sound of that is still like I can like vividly describe it to you and like hear
Very
it in my head right now. And I
crinkly
hate it.
crunches. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like terrifying.
Yeah, and like her previous film Revenge, there's like this exaggerated level of violence and believability of what a human body can take in
Hmm.
terms of injuries, but I think establishing that this film is set in like a hyper reality, you're never really questioning when characters are being torn to shreds and they're
Hmm.
still able to walk and live on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I another just main thing about the movie that I want to like really appreciate is just like the manipulation.
Mhm.
Like I think that horror and thrillers and even body horror and like dark comedies, all these, but mainly horror, and like suspense, really rely on a director manipulating their audience
Oh
to
yeah.
like feel what they want you to feel. A specific instance I'm thinking about is when Sue is like being Sue, and when she gets the role, she takes the role that Elizabeth had. So Elizabeth was the face of this like aerobic workout thing, and she
Yeah.
was like a star and loved by all these like executive men and like by like everybody, but then she gets old and then they replace her, but she inevitably replaces herself when she becomes Sue. But when she films her first thing, it's like I think like a 5 minute just montage of like
Yeah.
just the most like over the top over sexualized like dances I've scene in a movie, and I was like, literally, like, is this necessary? Like I was like, okay, dude, I get it. Like Margaret Qualley is hot. Like, okay, like I get it. Please, like, can we move on? I was like, what is the point of all this? But then, it made like after that happens, the scene where she inevitably goes back from Sue to Elizabeth, and there's a scene of Elizabeth watching those scenes,
Yeah.
and Elizabeth just watches in like with like an insatiable, like crazy human envy that I've never like seen portrayed in a movie, and like none of those scenes look sexy anymore. Like they like
Yeah.
looked unsettling.
When you like take a step back and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
what is sexiness and what is this like?
It was like sexiness at what cost?
Yeah.
It cost like everything.
I guess this like this image of sexuality that media and just our culture has kind of propped up.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where they show the footage from the shot again, or from the like shoot, again, and juxtaposed with all these pieces of like eaten up chicken, and it's just such a good juxtaposition of like just like the manipulation that it can take to like sexualize things is the same manipulation that it takes to like really be disgusted or like just disturbed.
Yeah, dude.
Like movies can be very disturbing.
Dude, the montages are so good.
I know.
It's just the perfect editing, and it really puts you into this headspace of feeling like overly stimulated, but also very like grounded at the same time.
And that's why I don't know, just every single shot in that movie, I could tell the intention behind it, and like it was working. Like I feel like every single feeling I had, I was like, okay, the director wanted me to feel this way, and it's like this movie's really working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to start digging into the final act of this film?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Elizabeth reaches a point where she feels like she should not be taking the substance anymore. And I'm trying to remember. At one point does she get old? How does
So,
that play out?
there's one time where she has to stay for like one extra day.
That's
Because
correct.
she gets the New Year's Eve show.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets like Sue gets a new like a way bigger gig. So she just needs more time. She gives herself an extra week.
That's right.
And she thinks, oh, okay, if I stay for 2 weeks, like she tries to break the system, but being like 2 weeks in this body, then I'll do 2 weeks. I'll take a 2 week break with you can be Elizabeth for 2 weeks. But she already knows it doesn't work like that. So she takes a full week off of Elizabeth. And the horror I felt when Sue's about to change to Elizabeth, because they tease the ways in which just one day can affect Elizabeth's body. 7 days, you see like what it did to Elizabeth, and it is like some of the craziest prosthetic makeup I think I've seen.
Yeah, she transforms into this horrific, almost like hunchback.
It reminded me of the All Mother from what's that movie? Barbarian. Yeah. It's just like was just like a grotesque body.
Yeah, kind of like I got some like X vibes. Those old Pearl, the old Pearl woman. And yeah, she turns into a very wretched version of herself, and she tries to reverse the effects of the substance and go back. She goes back into her Sue form, and she wants to create a better version of herself. So she takes the initial injection that is supposed to be just 1 day use and get rid of, and she turns into an absolute monstrosity, horrendous, disgusting looking beast. There's like part of Elizabeth's face coming out, and there's like many fingers and like hands and mouths coming out.
The sequence of Sue taking the initial substance thing and turning into this is so good, because when Elizabeth turns into Sue for the first time, there's a shot of her pupil, and then her pupil turns like splits like mitosis, like literally like two cells, and then it splits into like a blue eye, like Margaret Qualley's eye. And this time it's Margaret Qualley's eye, and it splits into like 30 eyes, and it's like the most scary. Like you're like, how bad can this possibly go? And then it happens, and you see it, and it's like the payoff is insane. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, the reveal shot of it is so good.
So many incredible reveals in this. There's like 3 different reveals, like the Margaret Qualley reveal, then the Elizabeth Hunchback, and then the final. Which, do you want to say the name they give her?
Yeah, so throughout this film, there is like title cards just kind of introducing the distinct personalities and phases of the substance. So we have Elizabeth Sparkle, and then we have Sue, and then the monstrosity version is introduced as Monstro Eliza Sue.
Which is just so funny. Like it's one of the best like punches to the face where it's like, all right, you're in the final like breath of this movie, and it's just
Yeah.
like everything's off the table.
Yeah, she was like almost like a Last of Us creature.
Literally, like
It's
the
just
Rat
like
King.
yeah, like where it's just aged so much and it's become that ginormous
Yeah.
monster.
So just incredible,
Yeah, and
incredible reveal
this all takes place on the day
of the New
that
Year's Eve party.
Sue is supposed to perform, and she decides to attend regardless of how she looks, and she walks up onto the stage, and everyone has a look and is disgusted by the sight. So of course she has a little freak out, and this begins a glorious sequence where she basically rips apart and starts spewing blood
It's
violently
it's an
across everyone.
incredible like relief or kind
Hmm.
of like a breaking of tension because the
Yeah.
whole movie when she's Elizabeth she doesn't want to be seen and she's kind of concealing herself,
Mm.
and when she's Sue she has to keep the secret, and if she doesn't stay on the seven if she isn't good on the seventh day then she starts turning back into Elizabeth. So like this final like release of the tension when and suspense when she finally just shows everybody like this
Yeah.
monstrous
Cat's out of
version
the
of
bag.
herself. And the Dennis Quaid character is like, I shaped her. He's like backing into all his boys, like, I shaped her up to be who she is. And she's
Mm.
just like terrifying. It's so good. And then she just starts spewing blood on everybody.
Yeah.
It reminded me of Inglorious Bastards, the ending, but then you said it was like another ending.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away too much, but there's a very similar sequence in the 2018 Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, as the scene was playing out, I was like, okay, I feel like they're kind of gonna go for something similar to that, but they
Mm-hmm.
just top it in ways that I was not anticipating.
It's just I typically am wary to call movies like slow burns,
Hmm.
and I think that there's a lot of justification for calling movies that have terrible pacing and like crazy endings slow burns.
Yeah.
But this is like a slow burn. Like
Hmm.
the burn at the end of this movie is just so good. Like by the
Yeah.
end of it, like I think that if you watch the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of this movie just cut together, it's probably gotta be the most insane juxtaposition ever. Like
Yeah. And it like kind of simulates that evolution that she experiences from going from feeling somewhat grounded into going into this monstrous territory, hellish nightmare that it devolves into.
yeah.
And she leaves the building and ends up back on her Hollywood star.
Oh.
And this is like a tie in back to the opening shot where we see her Elizabeth Sparkle star being placed onto the Walk of Fame.
Mhm.
And I think it's just such a good payoff for that
Incredible
shot.
payoff,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we see this is where she fully like deconstructs and fades away,
Mhm,
and like a piece of her face is left on the star
mhm.
and it's just cleaned away. And I
And
think
then
that's
there's like she kinda gets a vision of sparkles in the sky
yeah.
where it's like she finally got the limelight.
Mhm.
Like she finally got the attention she wanted. Or it's like it felt like a very deserved ending.
Yeah, and
Like
that
it's like
commentary is really good because it's just wiped away by that janitor or whatever.
yeah, it's like the impact she left was just gone.
Yeah,
And
she might have got it, but at what cost? Like
yeah.
people are just gonna move on. It's gonna be on to the next big thing, you know. There will be a
Mhm.
new Sue, a new Elizabeth Sparkle.
Yeah.
So yeah. Is there anything else we want to shout
Um,
out? Actually, yes, there is. All of the sets are very beautiful and like well done.
mhm,
Um, her apartment just itself is very larger than life and almost like video gamey. Like the way her bathroom looks specifically, it's a very repeated location, and just the amount of varied framing that they're able to achieve just with the mirror
mhm,
and like this little hidden back room that she has for her extra body is
mhm.
really interesting, very fascinating, and
So good.
yeah.
It's just it's so good. The bathroom is just so scary.
Mhm.
The movie's so bright. Um, like her room just feels like so plastic.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like a fake world, which I feel like it reminded me of Spy Kids.
Oh my god.
But in the best way possible. Like it just like looks so a lot of it felt like a video game. And I just think that more movies should feel like video games. Like
Yeah.
truly. But yeah.
This reached like malignant barbarian brain dead levels of like batshitness.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And I just wasn't expecting any of that walking into this movie, so it was just the best payoff ever.
Oh, okay. Something I remembered. The guy who does like the substance ad narration, I think is really good.
Yeah.
And
we need to find out where he like is from, because I feel like I know that voice.
Yeah, the tone of his voice is just fits so perfectly.
Yeah.
And he always feels like this force that's present and like there to remind her that she's not in control of
I
what
do
the
think that
substance
element is
doing.
so good that she can call up the people who give her the substance.
Yeah.
And each time it's like, what did you like? It's just like a great reminder that she all did this to herself.
Yeah. It feels like cartoony, but it fits.
Yeah, it so fits. I was hoping that like, because I knew that this movie was gonna be really good, so I was hoping that it would strike a good balance with the substance itself. Like I didn't want to know too much about it or like what their motivations were.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't want to know not that much. I didn't want it to be like confusing.
Yeah.
Just like
leaves you in the dark enough, but gives you just enough to feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she literally she receives like a little piece of advice to try the substance, and you call up this number and you basically go to like an Amazon like drop off point and pick up a package, and that's how you retrieve your substance.
Dang.
I don't know. Is it that simple in real life to go on the black market and get these things?
I don't have any experience, but I can assume no.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, we gotta find out.
Anyway, though, I think that wraps up our discussion.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there was anything else. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a great movie. I'm telling you guys, like I don't watch a movie in theaters and immediately think that that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. So this might be movie of the year for me so far. But
it's definitely up there for me too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever Coralie Fargeat has next.
Same, yeah.
I would give The Substance a very strong 9 out of 10. Yeah. What about you?
Same. I think. Oh no, actually not a 9 out of 10. Sorry, that is a solid, very solid 10 out of 10 for me. And I don't say that lightly.
Oof.
Just immediate. I could tell.
Anyone who is hoping that we could argue this episode, I apologize.
Not.
Maybe in the future, but yeah,
we'll see.
We're talking
because me and Justin do disagree on a lot of like. There's a good amount of movies that we could argue about. So that episode is coming.
These 2 episodes we've done together have been just very rare instances of we both gelled with the media that we talk about. But it's nice to.
No, I'm glad. I needed this.
It's nice to not be so negative about things and debate, even if it's healthy. Like I like just
sometimes I just want to appreciate a good piece of art.
Sometimes I just want to glaze with a brother.
Exactly.
Moving on though. Yeah, that was our discussion on the new JPEG and The Substance. Kavin, it was great to have you on here again.
Great to be back until my next appearance, next surprise appearance. Who knows
when will that be?
We'll see. We'll have to see. I'll let the listeners be suspended in, or not disbelief. What's the word?
In suspense.
In suspense. I'll leave them in suspense. But we'll see.
Suspended in suspense.
Suspended in suspense.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thanks for having me again.
Of course.
Glad to
anytime.
Be here.
It's always a pleasure when you're here.
Of course.
Yeah. Sorry for how behind we are covering content, but you know what? I'm busy. Joshua's busy. And you know what? We'll catch up every once in a while. Anyway, though, we'll catch you next time. Hope you listen. Bye.
Bye.